Your Town Matters is funded by the Government of Canada through the Local Journalism Initiative and supported by Cactus Media, Canada's independent community television association.
I'm Vicki Hogarth, and welcome to Your Town Matters. My guest today is the Mayor of the town of St. Andrews, Brad Henderson. Thank you so much for being here again today, Brad.
Thank you for having me. Happy spring.
Happy spring. Happy almost summer. We should start by
close.
talking about the fact that the one-way street in St. Andrews on Water Street has begun this year. It's a little longer than usual. It starts at Elizabeth, ends at Augustus. What was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, so there was a couple different reasons why that happened. I guess if you look at the fact that it's extended more towards the point, it's because there's a development that's expected to happen at Princess Royal this year. And in order for that development to happen, I couldn't imagine letting a one-way street stop plus all the construction. So we were forced to extend it because of that either way. And the idea of going 2 blocks extra versus 1 is if you get to Augusta Street, first of all, there's sidewalk there. So the other side streets don't have it. Augusta does, so people want to walk. It's still a safer street. And the other thing too, if you look from like a transportation standpoint, it is kind of one of those veins of the community that doesn't have as many stop signs, so people will be able to do kind of a loop without having as many stops. But keeping in mind, the corner of Augusta Street and Water Street is going to have a 4-way stop sign, just until we understand what the impacts are on the traffic flow, just in case it gets a little busier there. Now, why it starts earlier, more towards, let's say, the A&BL, the liquor store, is because a number of the businesses on that stretch actually wrote to town council saying they felt left out of the downtown because they weren't part of the one-way. So that one, I didn't see that one coming, but it was a request that they made. It is, again, a pilot project. Every year we're kind of adding little additions, and I think if you recall the first one we did versus where we are today, it's definitely improved, but there'll be some learnings from this summer to say, what do we do moving forward? Now, for people that are wondering why we don't do the one-way year-round, is the reason we don't have one-way street year-round is because you need a different type of plow altogether. So the plow actually has like a V to push it versus a one-way one. So we don't have actually the system to do kind of a one-way year-round. But there's lots of discussion. Should Prince of Wales be one way the other way? Should Queen Street be one way the other? Myself, I kind of like the traditional grid that the Loyalists set up. But yeah, we'll see how it goes this summer. One thing's for sure is everybody's thankful that the cattle grate experiment that we did during COVID is never going to be on the agenda again. So, but we'll see how these changes are. But really, it's because we're having construction downtown this summer.
And so that is across from Drew Haven, where there will be commercial on the main and then condos above. Can you speak a little bit about that? Yeah, so that gets underway soon.
Yeah, it does. That's a good one because this one was before council, I guess about 1.5 years ago now, maybe 2 years. Where there was a lot of back and forth. The original development required a lot of variances to the bylaws that the town of St. Andrews has. It required several. Town council at the time rejected that proposal. And one of the things is it was the size of it, the height of it. That was one of the variances it required. But it looked like that development had passed us by, but then kind of, several months later, the developer reached back out and said that they now have a proposal that fits every bylaw within the town of St. Andrews. So there's actually no decision for town council in this building. If it matches kind of the secondary municipal plan plus our zoning bylaws, then there's no real reason why council should be there to criticize. It's like getting a building permit for your home. If it fits in our bylaws, it's allowed.
Well, and we really do see the downtown extending a little further in that direction.
That's the exciting opportunity. The big thing that was always important from the very first, that would have been from a different applicant altogether, it was actually the landowner and a partner, is the original application had no business on the bottom floor, so no commercial activity. I think the bottom has to have commercial activity. You only have limited opportunities to expand the footprint of your business district. And I think that it's such a rare opportunity. We really needed to stick to that one. And I'm really glad to see because if you go downtown, there's a lot of great shops and restaurants and things to check out. But there's also a great opportunity to continue to give a variety and more businesses, especially if the Algonquin's looking to become more year-round. Perhaps there's an opportunity for more year-round businesses.
And speaking of the Algonquin, there were some exciting plans that were shown at last council meeting, both for their staff lodging, also for a new Nordic spa. Can you illuminate people at home about what they plan to do?
Yes, so I'm really excited to be able to talk about this. Some of these plans I've known for a while from Invest Hotels, but it is their business, it is confidential. So until it's before council, then at that time it's kind of their communication, and they have gone before council now, and they're looking for, I guess you call it the first phase of a series of things they're hoping to do in the community. But this first phase has kind of two different projects. One is a spa, which would be attached to the Prince of Wales section of the Algonquin Resort. So what we in St. Andrews still call the new section of the hotel. This would be an expansion onto that. It'd be a 2-story spa. And it's a really exciting opportunity. So for those of you that are wondering where specifically that is, it would be between the new wing of the hotel and Fort Tipperary. There's a parcel of land, and they'd be looking to kind of just extend that section through kind of a pedway across the, I guess you could say, driveway to go to some of their residents and behind. And it would extend at the same angle across, so it'd be towards the back of that lawn parcel. And they're really hoping that a 2-story spa really makes the Algonquin more of a year-round destination. We have a beautiful community. I think a common misconception is there's not a lot to do here in the winter, and I can tell you since I moved here, I would argue that any day. But in the same sense, it's another offering that they can offer to people. People, although they do spa services in the summer, where people are really looking for those getaways is in the shoulder season, and winter being one of the bigger. So the fact that they're trying to make the Algonquin be a year-round destination, I think that's really exciting for the community. So I'm excited over that project. And then the other project would be to take O'Brien Residence, as we know it. It is the one that's directly behind the hotel that's kind of on the corner of Harriet Street. And it would be to actually tear that building down. It has been looked at. You cannot salvage that building. So to tear it down and then build a new 2-story accommodation for managers primarily that would have 20 units in it. Be a little bit higher end because it is for managers versus a dorm room style. So again, what a wonderful addition. Here we are in a town that's trying to figure out housing. 20 new units for their managers means 20 new units that are available in the community for somebody else to get. So they rent there, means something else is open in the community. So it's really, both projects are very welcome. The only side of it that has to really have some conversation, and it does have to go through rezoning, it's not a done deal, but the thing that I think I've heard the most is just to make sure that it complements the existing Algonquin Resort, the heritage, the charm, the look and feel of it. We asked for better images, in particular the spa. There was 3 images we were provided, but it was all the same angle. I think we really need to see what that straight on angle is from Prince of Wales Street. And even when you're coming up the Prince of Wales Street towards Harriet, you want to see all 3 sides of it, of the front anyway, to know what it really looks like. And then at that time, council will have a decision to say, I don't think anyone's questioning the actual merit of the project. I think does it fit the look and feel of the hotel? And the jury, I guess, is out on that. At least the social media jury is. So, but yeah, we're listening, and in order to do a hearing of objections, we want to make sure we have the best images possible.
I had the opportunity to meet with Jeff Hislop from Invest, who's here from Toronto last week, and it is really exciting to see how much they seem to be investing in the hotel and in turn the town.
No pun intended. They invest hotels. I will say that the first thing that they ever brought to my attention is they wanted to invest in the dormitories, even in the mattresses that their employees were on. I think when you have a new company that comes to town and the first thing that they're putting money in is into their own employees, I think that's a healthy sign. They've got really, really big plans for the community, and I will say it's definitely a lot better being a mayor, a member of council, or a member of the community when you have ownership that's looking to make investment into the hotel versus ownership that's not making any investment at all. So this is good news for St. Andrews, and I think we just need to have dialogue. Do I think that these are both going to be a reality? Absolutely. We just all have to agree on kind of what it looks like.
Speaking of changes in town, we are gearing up for a new wharf that will be underway this fall. Can you give us an update on where we're at with that?
Yes, so right now they're just filing up kind of all of the documentation, engineering specific information that is required to go out to tender for this. So what's going to happen in the next few weeks is you're going to see basically a call for proposals out to all the different contractors, construction companies that can do this scope of work, or at least outsource this scope of work. And what we're really hoping is that we get a number of submissions so we're able to get a competitive bid that comes in. But you are seeing some dialogue. Again, speaking about social media, this was really, I guess, a discussed topic last week. We're working on the dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and not to say that those aren't important, but one of the things that kind of was talked about last week was the Island Quest, the yellow building that's to the left of the foot of the wharf, is where does that go? So, there's a lot of discussion on it is a privately owned building that is on town land. The reason it was on town land to begin with is before the wharf caught fire, it used to be federal land. When the wharf caught fire back in the early 90s, the federal government said, we will rebuild your wharf, but you will have to take over the wharf moving forward. So the town council of the day, I was a young guy, I don't even know, I was a teenager. I had a full head of hair, I was skinny back at SJDA. But what they decided is they were going to take on the wharf, and we inherited that parcel of land that private building was on. That private building has been there since I think 1951. It used to be the men's club in St. Andrews. I can't imagine that now, but just doesn't. I can't imagine it now. But Island Quest is a whale watching company, tour boat operators. They do shark fishing too, things like that. They've been there for 26 years. So council does not want to close the door to someone who's been operating 26 years in our community. So the question is, where does that building go? And one of the discussions was, can you move it back over towards the Day Adventure Center and put it sideways so it doesn't really impact the street end as much? There was a lot of people that thought that's a great idea. There were some people that thought that it wasn't. Or do you just tuck it in behind the post office? So that hasn't been decided. It was a preliminary conversation just to kind of gauge with the landowner of called the Day Adventure Center area to see what their thoughts were. But it's really preliminary. Any lease would have to be agreed upon council at a future date. But that seems to be the issue right now that people are discussing. But one thing's for sure, as we saw from the storms this past winter, is we have to do this project. It's already got a weight restriction on the wharf. And we're just a bad storm away from saying no vehicles at all.
And this wharf refurbishment, it will see Market Square change as well, because it is an environmental grant.
It is. So you'll see that be expanded. The expansion of it wasn't necessarily something we had to do. We had to lift the front of it up. We had to raise it for climate change. The funding, to your point, comes from climate change. If we didn't make a plan to adapt to climate change, we wouldn't have got funding for this project at all. And the town of St. Andrews is paying less than 30% of this overall cost. Don't get me wrong, a big bill, but we couldn't do it without the other levels of government. So expanding Market Square is going to give us a lot of different opportunity to grow, make it more of a community use space. Or, council's gonna have to debate it. Maybe it's more parking. But I don't think a lot of people know behind the post office, that strip that you go in and out of Market Square, it's not actually owned by the municipality. We only have a small section of it. Majority of that entry point is actually owned by the post office. And if you need to make sure you have emergency vehicles in there, as we saw in the Cottage Craft fire years ago, you need to make sure that you're expanding that so we actually have enough land as well to go in and out. So what we're going to see in the future on Market Square, and council's already committed to this, is we want to do a visioning exercise about what that space can be used for. However, when it goes back to that Island Quest building, all of council doesn't feel the future of that space is having a privately owned building in the middle of it. So that's why the conversation of potentially moving it over is happening.
Oh, interesting. And we should see the wharf underway. I guess it won't have an impact on the summer season. This will be something that October. Yeah,
I think you'll feel it. Maybe Indulge. We might not. It might look a little different for Indulge. I know that right now Indulge Festival is planning to put the tent not in Market Square, but at the bottom of King Street. So yeah, you'd probably see that second week of October if all goes as planned. that be when the construction, when you actually see the actual vehicles coming in. And although it's a huge, massive project to us, for a lot of these contractors, it's actually not as big of a project as we think it is. But in my time in St. Andrews, and I think in the history of St. Andrews, it's probably the most expensive project we've ever done as a municipality.
Speaking of fall, November is coming up. That's when we should see tenants going into Compass Housing, which has been a big project that I know a lot of people are anticipating, affordable housing for the community. And that is coming up. What is the latest on that?
Yeah, so council actually this past week did a tour with the ownership group, the actual people that are building this. So we were able to meet with Tressa Bevington, and council walked through the actual site. So if you're there right now, and of course this is when you see this video, you'll see that kind of 2 sections are underway, and the basement was just poured for the 3rd. That is the final section of it. So what you see as a footprint is the size of it. So the 42 units are expected. The goal when we signed the development agreement was to have it completed by the end of 2024. And it was a tight timeline. We knew it was, but they are on track to be open November of 2024. So it's really exciting. They've filled a number already of lease agreements, and I can't get into particulars because I don't have them, but I couldn't get into particulars if I wanted to. But I will say that when council decided to support this initiative to make it affordable housing and lock in rents for 15 years with only inflationary adjustments, there was certain demographics or people in our community that we wanted to assist. And I'm really happy to hear that without having their names, that I'm hearing a lot of stories of single parents that have been having a hard time living in our community with the cost of living, able to finally find a place. There's lots of examples of seniors that the cost of living has gone up on them. They're on a fixed income. They haven't been able to make it work, and they've been really concerned. I'm glad to hear that they've signed some leases. So I'm really hoping that the people that this project is intended for, this is where it hits, and early indication is that it is. It would be great if by some chance that some units were available for New Brunswick Community College students, because they're someone that we were really passionate about helping as well. But I will say that as we put more units available in our community, if you have vacancy rates that are closer to 4 or 5% in your community, it actually helps lower rents and keeps them more reasonable. But we've been operating almost at 0%. So between this and the other properties that are happening in the community, there's construction going a lot of places. Evans Land Development is going to be starting kind of at the across from the Bar Road in the near future. There's a lot of reason to believe if you add them all up, it's over 200 units in a community of 3,000. We're making progress, and I will say I don't want to, pat town council and senior staff on the back too much, but I don't think there's a lot of small communities that have already made as much progress towards development and finding multiple residential as the town of St. Andrews. So I do think it's change, it's scary, but we have a lot to be proud of because people are struggling out there right now. And again, I've talked about it the last few census before this one that just came out. We are in population decline. Our average age was going up. We actually have to grow for this community to survive. So it's scary doing change, but it was well needed. And I remember when I first came to St. Andrews, the elderly people that were on town council, no disrespect to some of you, but they always said if St. Andrews had an extra 500 people in its population, it wouldn't hurt anything. It'd be very good for business and for year round. And I'm happy to say that I think we were there, right? So we got the Housing Accelerator Fund that the federal government is yet to give $1 to in this region. That's been frustrating, but I'm hoping with the newest announcement of the federal budget being announced with a second wave of funding, that St. Andrews or even St. Stephen or St. George, Eastern Charlotte, get considered because it's a regional problem. It's not a St. Andrews problem. More units in St. Stephen is good for St. Andrews.
And yet St. Andrews has been so proactive. Town council partnering with Compass Housing, but there's also people like Dominic Berlanger doing his own housing projects as well. Are you shocked that we were left out of the Housing Accelerator Fund, given how progressive and proactive town council has been?
It's probably a fault. Sometimes I'm too honest about things, I guess. But the truth of the matter is our community can't keep investing in housing at the rate that it is. And I know you can look at these investments and look at return investment, and it'll pay itself back, which in a lot of cases it's true. But all of these kind of apartment buildings and things like that, the provincial government's it's double taxed. Provincial government's taking the second half of it all to themselves. None of that double tax comes back to the town of St. Andrews. So I think we need investment from the provincial government into housing this community. I think the Passamaquoddy Lodge might be a good example of doing that, because it might actually help us. If you look at the old lodge, what the potential could be. But the Housing Accelerator Fund, I'll be straight. We in New Brunswick, St. Andrews has the fastest growing population in communities over 1,000. The fact that not a single community in our region got $1 from a multi-billion-dollar program, it doesn't make sense. We've asked for explanation from CCMHC, and they weren't able to actually provide that for us, and they weren't able to provide any reason whatsoever other than the number of applications exceeded the number of requests. But there's regions that had multiple projects funded. So yeah, you wonder if it's the fact that we're in rural New Brunswick of why we were rejected, or perhaps we're in a riding that has an MP of the opposition color. When you don't give a reason, and you don't give transparency, it gives people the ability or the thoughts that maybe that something is wrong. And I hope that we find out a lot more about this process and how it can be more transparent, because I know that the Mayor of Macadam and Eastern Charlotte, they were very vocal and upset over this. If a project gives billions of dollars across Canada and it doesn't fund your region, it actually contributes to inflation. It also pulls contractors in your own region to other regions to work on projects. So when you bid on your own, costs go up. It hurts you if you don't get $1. And so we do need all three levels of government working together, because expecting the municipal government to figure this out on their own, like we've seen on a lot of projects, it's not fair.
In another facet of housing, you and I were just at the grand opening of the Charlotte County Seniors Resource Center, which has actually been quietly open since January. Can you talk a little bit about how that is meant to help seniors stay in their homes longer, which is obviously another avenue of housing? Yeah,
so they're calling the program Nursing Homes Without Borders. There's now, I think, 20 locations across New Brunswick. It's pretty exciting. If you're aging in this community, one of your concerns is, can I stay in my house? Like, is this for this chapter, is this where I want to be, or do I have to move to an urban center? And I think in the past there wasn't a lot of resources if you want to stay at home. And even if there was resources, there's a lot of information out there that you just don't get. So the fact that there's a place you can go to find out certain programs, like, hey, is there a way to defer my power bill? Is there a way to defer my property tax? I heard about this new program. Do I qualify, right? To have someone like Emma Keach, who is there, and she's got lots of experience living at seniors working with seniors at the Passamaquoddy Lodge. I think it's a wonderful resource for people in our community to use. And as far as the municipality is we want to be an age-friendly community. We've got a 3-year designation that we recently got renewed. So we are kind of best in class as far as being age-friendly. But you can't just talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. So this town council is providing space for that facility. So if you look at the arena and all of the things that it provides now that it didn't a few years ago, the fact that not only can you go to the wellness center to meet it with a doctor, but you can also now go to the senior resource center to get other additional resources in your day-to-day life. It makes sense that they're kind of side by side. I think that it bodes really, really well for our community. So I'm looking forward to, it's a pilot project, so I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. But for me, it's twofold. I mentioned the Passamaquoddy Lodge. Sure, yes, age and place. Everyone wants to stay in their home as long as possible. But we also have to keep focusing on, if you do need to go to an assisted living facility, where do I go? And the Passamaquoddy Lodge has got great staff. They've maintained it well, but that building's over 50 years old. So that's part A, but we also need part B, I think, in this community.
Finally, summer is almost here. It already feels busy. Are you wearing your day hat as a marketing director at Kira and Kingsbrae Garden? Are you anticipating a busy summer, and what do you think is in store for the tourist season? We are anticipating a busy summer. There's actually the 2 last events that we've got planned and haven't been announced. Daniel Spitz and I have been talking about them all day. They're close to being announced, but we are anticipating a busy year. We've got some really exciting activity that's happening.
I know that if you look at some other attractions in the community together, there's a lot of reasons to be excited, a lot of reasons to come here. So we are looking forward to that. Kingsbrae, a lot of colors already in bloom. We obviously started with the Heath and Heather Garden, but it's actually, I don't recall so much different color. The trees normally bring a lot of color this time of year, but there's a lot of color on the ground, so there's lots to see at Kingsbrae, that's for sure. The only thing that I am a little bit worried about leading into the summer season is the cost of everything is so high right now, the cost of living. If you actually look at people's, even if you look at our garbage, the amount of garbage that's returned to the landfill in our region, it's down about 20%, which clearly to me indicates that people do not have as much money to spend on things right now. So that's a little bit of a caution, but with that being said, what we saw during the pandemic is when people couldn't travel as far, you had more staycationers, and we know that St. Andrews, when the borders were closed, was just as busy as a normal year. So there's a lot of reason to counter that and say that local day trippers could offset that.
All right. Well, I always appreciate having you here. Thank you so much for taking time to sit down with me today, Brad.
Thanks for having me.
My guest today has been the mayor of the town of St. Andrews, Brad Henderson. I'm Vicki Hogarth. Thank you for watching Your Town Matters.